Here are the headlines. I'm 52 years old. My name is Carrie Fisher. I live in a beautiful house in Los Angeles. I have 2 dogs, and I have a wonderful daughter named Billy. My entire existence could be summed up with, if my life were not funny, then it would just be true. And that is unacceptable. Now, what that means, other than what it sounds like, is that something can happen in your life, and from a certain slant, maybe it's tragic or shocking. However, as time goes on and the funny slant comes in, that same thing can cause you harm no longer. An example of the tragic yet shocking might be, a few years ago, a really good friend of mine died in my house. However, not content enough to simply die in my house, he also died in my bed. So he didn't just die in his sleep, he died in mine as well. In Alison M. Landoni's A Laughing Matter, Transforming Trauma Through Therapeutic Humor and Expressive Arts Therapy, it is confirmed that humor can be used as a communication tool within the therapeutic process, and that using humor therapeutically, clients can create helpful coping mechanisms to offset life's many stressors, which can help them see the value of self-efficiency and self-control. In her 5th published work, author, actress, and comedian Carrie Fisher describes the hardships in her life, spanning from the death of her best friend to experience an electric shock therapy. Although Fisher orders the audience to not pity her and her experiences, it can be difficult to do so, as she does not view her life as a problematic one. However, Fisher offers a different perspective, a good life with a few problems along the way, dealing with these hiccups with the best medicine, laughter. Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. Greg was my best friend. We weren't dating or anything. Means he didn't die in the saddle, making me the saddle. No, Greg was gay, which may turn out to be a reoccurrence in here. Now, if you entertain like I do, I would recommend your guests not do this for 2 reasons. 1, they'll end up dead, and I don't care how religious you are, that's not fun for anybody. And 2, it tends to throw the hostess off of her game for about a year or 3. But enough about death. I just wanted to get this bummer story out the way, because the rest are just sunshine and smiles and rainbows. Fine, you caught me. I'm a drug addict. Now, I'm not asking you to feel bad for me or suggest that my existence could be described as a predicament of some sort. I'm simply describing the dynamics that were at work during my formative years. One of my dozens of psychiatrists told me it is important to differentiate a problem and an inconvenience. And listen, I don't care what the dictionary says about problems and inconveniences. A problem derails your life, and an inconvenience is having not had a nice seat on the underailed train. Given that, I've had 3 problems in my life. Dead guy in my bed, substance abuse, and manic depression. My final little problemette stems from the trouble I seem to have with romantic relationships. More specifically, the last categorically serious relationship I had with my ex-husband, Brian. My man left me for another man. Billy's father left me for a man named Scott, making Scott the man who got away. Now, having nothing to do with Brian, I was invited to go to a mental institution a year later. And I went because, what? You get invited and you're just not supposed to go? I don't want to be rude. How many of you have been invited to a mental hospital? My diagnosis was manic depression. otherwise known as bipolar disorder. So you could say that I swing both ways. You'd have to say that really loudly, otherwise I wouldn't hear you. But ultimately, I do feel sane in how crazy I am. Periodically, though, I do tend to explode. So when that happens, I often offer my guests bibs because I'm a good hostess, minus the Greg thing. So in case I do explode, I don't get my crazy juices all over their nice clothes. But now, we've gotten to know each other a little while. So I think it's time that I announce that I have had electric shock therapy. And I tend to feel a lot better about myself when I discover that we are not alone. Because these people are also fucked up. But I feel better because look how much these fellow fuck-ups have managed to accomplish. Like, look at them go. Why do I feel I needed to have ECT? Well, it had been recommended over the years by my dozens of psychiatrists, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It seemed too barbaric. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, after all, was not the most enticing example. But I'd been feeling pretty defeated and depressed. I didn't necessarily feel like dying, but I didn't feel a whole lot like living either. The other reason, as I mentioned, that I was depressed, profoundly depressed. Part of that could be attributed to my mood disorder, which no doubt is probably the reason for my emotional intensity. That's what can take simple sadness and turn it into sadness squared. It's what revs the engine of an unpleasant experience, filling it with rocket fuel and blasting into a place in the stratosphere that is, something like a suicidal tendency, a place where the wish to continue living is but completely absent. So I think to myself, after this, after the nightclubs and the gay husband and the drug abuse, if what doesn't kill you makes you, well, if what doesn't kill you makes you not dead, but if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, then I should be able to lift the Cedars-Sinai Hospital on my shoulders and glow in the dark. So I say to myself after this, bring it on! Don't ever say that. Do not ever say that, because it will be brought, and that, my friends, is when Greg died. ECT has forced me to rediscover a part of myself in what amounts to the sum of Carrie Fisher. Some of my memories will never return. They are lost along with the crippling feeling of defeat and hopelessness. Not a tremendous loss, if you ask me. Totally worth it. I heard someone once say that many of us only seem able to find heaven after backing out of hell. And while this place in my life may not seem like everybody's idea of heaven, I swear that sometimes, if I'm quiet enough, I can hear the angels sing. That or I fucked up my medication.